What if I told you that falling apart might be the beginning of finally being real? Not strong, not perfect, not always calm, but honest. There's a moment, maybe you've lived it, when everything you've held together begins to unravel. A relationship, a family, your sense of control. Maybe it all collapses in silence. Maybe it explodes. Either way, you stand in the wreckage with trembling hands and wonder, how did I get here? You replay conversations in your mind that ended in cold shoulders or slammed doors. You stare at your phone hoping for a message that never comes. You scroll, numb, searching for something to feel again, or not feel at all. And when you're alone, when there's no one to perform for, a different voice creeps in. Maybe it whispers, you're the problem. Maybe it screams, you're unlovable. Maybe it just sighs, you should have seen this coming, but you're here. Listening, breathing, which means something inside you still believes you can find peace even in the middle of the collapse. This video is for the quiet fighters, the ones who try to hold it together even when they feel like they're crumbling inside, the ones who smile while hiding their storm. If that's you, stay close. I want to tell you a story, one that's not about fixing yourself, but about remembering yourself, the self that doesn't need to be saved, only seen. We're going to explore how to stay calm when everything falls apart, not by forcing calmness, but by understanding what's really happening underneath the chaos. I'll walk with you through that collapse, not around it, and I'll share what helped others, and maybe you find breath again, one small truth at a time. If this speaks to you, if even a part of you feels seen already, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and give this video a quiet like. Not for the numbers, for the signal that says, I'm here. And I'm listening. Take a breath. Let's begin. There was a woman I met once. She sat across from me in a quiet cafe, the kind with soft lighting and chairs that creaked like they held secrets. Her hands wrapped around her mug like it was the only thing holding her together. She was successful by most standards. Educated, married, 2 children. But her eyes told a different story, like something inside her had been quietly bleeding for years. She didn't come to talk about work or parenting. She came because something broke. She had screamed at her daughter that morning, not a raised voice, a scream. And it scared her, not because she lost control, but because, in that moment, she didn't care that she had. That's what collapse feels like. It doesn't always look dramatic from the outside, but inside, it's a slow implosion. And she whispered to me, like confessing a sin, I don't recognize myself anymore. Have you ever felt that? You wake up and the face in the mirror is familiar but foreign. You laugh, but it's automatic. You say, I'm fine, and even you stop believing it. You've built a life, but somewhere along the way, you forgot how to live in it. You became the role, the caretaker, the provider, the fixer. And now, with everything shaking beneath you, the mask is slipping and the real you, the tired you, the honest you, is gasping for air. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But there comes a time, maybe this is yours, when the pain of avoiding it becomes heavier than the pain of facing it. That's when the falling apart begins. And that's where the calm can come from. Not the kind of calm that's polished or pretty, but the kind that comes from surrender. The moment when you stop clenching, when you stop forcing, when you look around at the ashes of everything you tried to hold together, and you finally say, okay, this is where I am. That moment, that's not weakness, that's clarity. Because falling apart isn't the end. It's a strange kind of beginning. But first, you grieve. You grieve the version of you that thought love meant being quiet. You grieve the dream that didn't unfold the way you hoped. You grieve the effort, the energy, the years poured into something that still left you feeling empty. And grief, true grief, is sacred. It's not something to rush or clean up or apologize for. It's not a flaw in your healing. It is your healing. I know people will say, just move on. But they don't know what you held in silence, what you endured, what you tolerated just to avoid being alone. They don't know what it cost you to keep smiling, but I know. And if your voice trembles when you finally speak the truth, that's not weakness. That's bravery breaking through. So breathe again, slowly, like you're inhaling a new kind of life. Because you are. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to stay. Stay with yourself. Stay present. Stay open to what this moment is teaching you, even if it's just teaching you how to sit in the dark without abandoning yourself. There's a calm that doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from letting go of the lie that you ever could. There was a man who used to believe calmness meant control. Every emotion was a threat to him. Every tear from his wife, every tantrum from his child, every moment of silence felt like something he needed to fix. Or else, because deep down, he believed if he didn't hold it all together, he would lose everything. So he smiled, worked late, said yes when he wanted to say no, swallowed his feelings until his own body began to ache. Not from illness, from the weight of being unread. He told me once, I don't get angry, I don't cry, I just shut down. And isn't that a kind of collapse too? Not loud, but quiet, disconnected, like you're still here but unreachable. That kind of collapse is harder to name because from the outside, you look okay, you function, you answer texts, you show up, but on the inside, numb, hollow, like something vital got turned off. And here's the truth most people won't say out loud. That kind of numbness is not peace. It's not emotional maturity. It's not healing. It's self-abandonment wearing a mask. But how do you stay calm without shutting down? You feel, even when it burns, even when it shakes you, even when it makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. You feel because the body remembers. The heart remembers. What you silenced at 15 comes back at 35. What you denied in one relationship echoes in the next. What you buried so deep inside eventually grows roots and becomes the very thing that causes you to snap at the wrong time or fall into patterns that break you all over again. So what do you do when everything falls apart? You stop running, you stop pretending, and you start listening, closely, tenderly, to the parts of you that are still speaking beneath the noise. There's a voice in you, a soft one. Maybe you've ignored it. Maybe it sounds too unfamiliar. Maybe it doesn't speak in words, but in feelings. Tightness in your chest, a deep fatigue that doesn't lift, a sadness you can't explain. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's the part of you that knows you've been performing too long. That knows survival mode isn't meant to be permanent. That knows peace doesn't mean everything is fixed. It means you've stopped betraying yourself. You see, calmness isn't the absence of emotion. It's the ability to hold your own truth without collapsing under it, to cry without shame, to be angry without guilt, to be lost without rushing to be found. Because only when you stop resisting your pain does it begin to loosen its grip. There's no perfect path to this. No step-by-step guide to healing. No timeline. Some days you'll feel strong. Other days you'll fall to your knees. And both are holy. Both matter. Your calm will not be Instagrammable. It won't come with candles and mantras and neat bullet points. It will come in the middle of the night when your tears finally fall and you don't stop them. It will come when you admit, maybe for the first time, I'm not okay. And the world doesn't end. It will come when you stop negotiating your worth in other people's approval, and slowly, without fanfare, you'll begin to return to your body, to your breath, to the self you left behind in all the chaos. Not a new you, but a true you. There's something terrifying about stillness, isn't there? Not the peaceful kind, the kind that comes after everything's collapsed, the silence after the shouting, the stillness after the goodbye, when you're no longer fighting to hold it together, but you're not sure what's left. You sit with your thoughts, and they swarm. Memories, regrets, the urge to reach out, the shame of reaching out before and being met with silence, the questions you'll never get answered, the apology that never came. And in that stillness, the mind tries to make sense of the mess. Maybe it was your fault. Maybe you loved too much, or not enough. Maybe you gave all the wrong pieces of yourself away just to be wanted. Maybe you confused being needed with being loved. But the truth? Sometimes, people don't leave because you were too much. They leave because they couldn't meet you where you were brave enough to go. You wanted depth. They were afraid of it. You wanted truth. They were afraid of it. You wanted connection that didn't require shrinking or self-erasure. And that made you dangerous to their comfort, to their avoidance, to their illusions. That is not your failure. That is your awakening. And the calm you seek now doesn't come from finding the right person to stay. It comes from staying with yourself when everyone else has left. Because maybe, for the first time in your life, You're beginning to ask, what if I stop making homes out of people who don't know how to hold me? What if I stop asking to be chosen and choose myself instead? What if peace isn't something I find in someone else, but something I build from the inside out? These questions are not soft. They are earthquakes. They rearrange everything. They expose the cracks. They burn the old scripts. They force you to face the truth, that calmness isn't the result of external safety. It's the result of internal alignment. When your yes means yes, when your no doesn't come with guilt, when your presence isn't a performance, that kind of calm is quiet, but unshakable. It doesn't mean the storm stops. It means the storm no longer defines who you are, because here's what no one tells you. Sometimes, the most loving thing you'll ever do is disappoint the expectations people had of you. Sometimes, calm looks like saying less, answering slower, not reacting to the bait, not defending yourself against lies because the truth no longer needs an audience. Sometimes, calm means walking away not because you're done loving someone, but because you're done abandoning yourself to do it. That's not cold. That's sacred. And when the loneliness creeps in, as it will, remember, loneliness after self-abandonment isn't punishment. It's recalibration. Your nervous system adjusting to the absence of chaos it once mistook for connection. You're not broken for missing someone who hurt you. You're not weak for aching when the silence is too loud. You're human, and healing isn't linear. It's a spiral. You will revisit old wounds. You will have days that knock the breath out of you. You will grieve people while still holding love for them. That doesn't mean you're going backward. It means you're becoming someone who no longer needs to chase what already belongs to them. Someone who no longer apologizes for needing softness. Someone who no longer confuses silence with peace or love with sacrifice. You're becoming the calm you once searched for in everyone else. And that is the beginning of everything. There's a soft kind of bravery in waking up alone and choosing not to run. Not from the grief, not from the memories, not from the aching quiet, but choosing instead to sit with it, to sip your coffee in the stillness and whisper to yourself, you're safe now, even if you don't fully believe it yet, even if your hands still shake when the past shows up in the present, even if your body still tenses at the sound of footsteps, or certain names, or the word love. This is what healing often looks like, not a straight line, but a return, a remembering of who you were before the fear taught you to be smaller, before rejection taught you to mold yourself into what others wanted, before love became a test you had to keep passing by sacrificing yourself. When everything falls apart, the ego will panic. It wants order. It wants to fix. It wants to explain and analyze and name the villain and write the ending. But your soul just wants to feel. Your soul doesn't need answers. It needs truth. And truth is simple, not easy, but simple. You are not what they did to you. You are not the relationship that broke you. You are not the approval you chased, the silence you sat through, or the pieces you gave away to be enough. You are what remains. After, beneath, beyond. And maybe now, in this space of collapse, you finally have the chance to meet yourself. Not the version shaped by other people's comfort, not the version trained to please or perform, but the version that was always there, waiting, watching, whispering, come home. There's this idea that we must be strong to survive heartbreak, to withstand abandonment, to keep going when we're exhausted. But sometimes, the strongest thing you'll ever do is fall apart without numbing yourself. To feel it all, to scream into the pillow, to cry on the kitchen floor at midnight, to admit out loud, this hurts more than I thought it would. That is not weakness. That is release. The body was never meant to hold that much unspoken sorrow. The heart was never meant to carry unlived truths. Eventually, it overflows. And in that flood, there's an invitation to stop fixing, pleasing, explaining, to stop running back to things that stole your peace, to stop shrinking so someone else can feel big. You weren't made to beg for crumbs of love. You weren't made to silence your needs to keep the peace. You weren't made to endure a life that starves your spirit. You were made for depth, for stillness, for truth. And if no one ever told you this before, hear it now. Your tears are not a burden. Your emotions are not too much. Your need for safety, connection, softness, that's not a flaw. That's human. You do not have to keep performing strength while quietly dying inside. Let the collapse come. Let it unravel what was never real. Let it show you what you've been clinging to that never loved you back. And when it does, when it all comes undone, don't run. Breathe. Feel. Listen. Because in that moment of undoing, the most sacred truth may reveal itself. You were never meant to hold it all together. You were meant to be whole, and that's not the same thing. There's a moment after the storm when everything is quiet but not empty. You're still here, breathing. A little bruised maybe, a little uncertain, but something is different. Subtle but undeniable. The panic has loosened its grip. The ache hasn't disappeared, but it's not screaming anymore. It's humming. It's soft. It's something you can carry without breaking, and that's the moment people miss. The quiet return of your own presence. Because after you've fallen apart, after you've cried and collapsed and let go of what you thought you needed, what's left isn't weakness, it's space. Space to notice how your body feels when it's not performing. Space to feel hunger and rest and joy, not as escapes, but as belonging. Space to hear your own voice again, not the one that tries to keep people happy, but the one that remembers what it's like to feel alive. That space is sacred. That space is the beginning of calm. Not because life is perfect now. It won't be. People will still disappoint you. Fear will still try to slip in through the cracks. You'll still have days when the past pulls you under, when your chest tightens for reasons you can't name. But now you have awareness. Now you've seen the inside of your collapse. Now you don't need to fear the fall, because you've learned something most never do. Calm doesn't mean nothing hurts. Calm means you trust yourself to hold what hurts. There's no magic moment where everything is healed. There is only this. You in the mirror, looking softer. You in the silence, choosing not to fill it with apologies. You in the presence of love, no longer shrinking to earn it. You in the presence of pain, no longer abandoning yourself to avoid it. You have become a safe place. And that changes everything. Because when you become that for yourself, the chaos outside doesn't get to decide your worth anymore. Other people's rejections don't land the same. Their silence, their confusion, their inability to meet you where you are, that's not your mirror anymore. You've outgrown the need to be understood by people who can't even hear themselves. You've outgrown the lie that calmness comes from controlling the outside world. Now you know. It comes from trusting your inner world, your breath, your boundaries, your truth. That's what no one tells you about falling apart. It strips away what isn't real. And in the rubble, you find the self you've always been becoming. Not perfect, not finished, but whole. And wholeness doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be lived. There was a time when you would have done anything to feel wanted. Not loved, wanted. You know the difference. Love is soft, steady, sees you, but wanted, that one's trickier. It demands something from you. It wants a version of you that's shinier, quieter, more convenient. And so, for years, maybe you gave it. You became smaller when your truth felt too big. You smiled when you were dying inside. You forgave too quickly, said it's okay when it wasn't. Let them come back even after they disappeared, because deep down, you were just so afraid of being the one left behind. But now you know, when everything falls apart, what's left isn't the version of you they needed you to be. It's the one who remained. The one who watched the collapse and chose to stay anyway. And you realize calm doesn't come when people finally see your worth. Calm comes when you do. It doesn't come when the pain stops. It comes when you stop bargaining with it. When you stop asking it to be softer or shorter or more polite. When you let it move through you like weather, not permanent, not personal, just real. And maybe the hardest part of healing is this: learning to sit in that space between who you were and who you're becoming. No identity to perform, no certainty about what's next, just presence, just breath, just you. And maybe for the first time that's enough. You look back and realize the things that broke you weren't random. They revealed what you'd been taught to tolerate, what you thought you had to earn, what you confused with love because you never had a map to something healthier. But this breaking, this falling apart, this is the moment you start to write your own map, one with rest, one with real nose, one where your softness isn't a liability but a signal of your power, where your body is no longer a battleground but a home, where your inner peace doesn't depend on anyone texting you back. This calmness you've begun to taste, it's quiet, so quiet. And sometimes that makes you wonder if it's real. It is. It's just that you're not used to love that doesn't hurt, to presence that doesn't demand, to rest that doesn't feel like guilt. You're learning a new language. One where safety doesn't mean staying silent, where connection doesn't mean collapsing into someone else, where healing isn't a straight line but a gentle return, over and over, to your center. And yes, some people won't understand this new version of you. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you've become distant. They'll say you're too much, or not enough, or not like you used to be. Let them. They're mistaking your self-ownership for ego, your boundaries for coldness, your peace for arrogance. That's not your problem. Your calm isn't a performance. It's a promise to yourself that you'll never again abandon your inner voice just to be chosen, that you'll never again beg to stay in rooms where your soul can't breathe, that you'll never again confuse survival with love. This isn't just healing. This is homecoming. Some days, you might still ache, not because you're weak, not because you're slipping backward, but because healing doesn't erase the memory of what hurt it, just makes you stronger in the presence of it. You'll walk past places that once held too much of your heart. You'll hear songs that echo old versions of you. You'll remember things that still sting, and you'll feel it. But the difference now, you don't unravel, you breathe. You close your eyes for a second, and then you keep going, because your strength no longer depends on pretending it didn't matter. It depends on knowing it did and choosing to live forward anyway. That's calm, not apathy, not numbness, but a steady kind of grace that whispers, you can carry this, and you don't have to carry it alone. And maybe that's the most unexpected gift in falling apart, realizing how little you need what once controlled you. The approval, the attention, the stories you told yourself about what you had to be in order to be loved. You start to see through it all. You start to remember that the love you've been searching for, it was never about getting it from someone else. It was about rebuilding the bridge back to yourself. The you who says no and means it. The you who takes up space without apology. The you who knows that being chosen by others means nothing if you keep abandoning your own heart to stay in their favor. There's this moment, maybe it's already happened for you. Maybe it's still coming, when someone will try to pull you back into the old version of you. The quieter one, the more manageable one, and you'll feel that old reflex, the one that wants to please, to soften, to stay safe. But this time, something will shift. You'll hear your own voice inside you say, not anymore, and you won't rage. You won't argue. You'll just stand tall in your truth. Calm, clear, kind, because you've tasted peace now, and chaos, no matter how familiar, no longer feels like home. That's the real turning point. Not when others notice your growth, but when you do, when you choose rest over rumination, boundaries over burnout, honesty over harmony that costs your voice. When you stop rushing to fix everything and start trusting that not everything needs to be fixed. Some things just need to fall, to crumble, to break open, so something truer can take its place. This is what it means to stay calm when everything falls apart. Not because the world is gentle, but because you are. Not because life got easier, but because you got real. And now, when you look in the mirror, maybe for the first time, you recognize yourself again. You recognize the eyes, a little softer now, wiser too, like they've seen the worst and didn't look away, like they've held grief and not let it drown them. You recognize the shoulders, still tired some days, but no longer weighed down by proving or performing. You recognize the breath, slower, deeper, not waiting for the next blow, just breathing. You recognize the silence, not empty anymore, full of truth, full of presence, full of the person you've become. And maybe this is the calm you never thought you'd find, not in a perfect ending, not in being chosen, not in finally getting what you thought you wanted, but in letting go of needing people to understand your healing, letting go of fighting for love that asks you to shrink, letting go of the idea that your softness is something to be earned back after pain. You don't need to perform peace anymore. You are peace, even when your voice trembles, even when your past still whispers, even when your healing looks messy and slow. You are peace because you stayed when it would have been easier to shut down. You stayed with your feelings. You stayed with your breath. You stayed with the parts of you that others said were too much. And through that staying, you found a deeper kind of calm, the kind that doesn't beg, the kind that doesn't flinch, the kind that doesn't need permission to take up space. You didn't get here by chance. You got here by breaking, by feeling, by remembering, by choosing again and again to stop running from yourself. And now you're no longer afraid of the quiet. You welcome it. Because the silence that used to scream now holds you. The stillness that once echoed loneliness now feels like truth. You've come home, not to someone else, to you, and that no matter what anyone tells you is the most powerful kind of calm there is. Thank you for being here, for listening, for staying with yourself through these words. If this touched something in you, if it made you feel a little more seen, a little more understood, I invite you to subscribe, to share this with someone who might need it, and to leave a comment about what part stayed with you, not because you have to, but because maybe, in sharing your truth, you remind someone else that they're not alone either. You are not broken, you are becoming, and the calm you found, that's real, that's yours, that's home.